going back to the beginning, when and how did you become involved with the show first?
So I became involved because I have known Alex Timbers for many, many years. And he had hired Eddie to write the music. And in one of Eddie's trips to New York, when they were first working on the very first drafts, he set us up on a blind date. So we went and had coffee and met and chatted. And as you know, he's like the greatest guy. So it was like, at that point, he hadn't written a lot of stuff, so I hadn't heard anything. So I only knew his music and his life as a performer before Beetlejuice. But I was like, I'm in, whatever, whatever you want to do. And then that was a while before we did anything. I mean, I think it was probably maybe 6 months to a year before I heard from anybody again. And then Alex called me and said that they were doing a read through, that Eddie, Scott, and Anthony in their hotel room in New York they're going to read the script, and Eddie was going to sing the songs. And so it was me and Alex and a couple people from Warner Brothers and the dramaturg, very small people in this crammed in a little hotel room. And they read through the script and the songs. And it was hilarious and completely different than anything that ended up in the script. Like it's such a different show. And so that was the first step. And then from there, we did our first reading with actors. And it was, I don't know if the guys talked about it, but it was a 1 week, 29-hour reading with the full cast, with a full band. And it was so stressful. And I think, the way these work, the union says you have 29 hours you're allowed to use the actors for the week. And that includes the 3 hours of the presentation. So it's a really short amount of time to learn new material. And because no one had ever read this out loud before with the songs, like Tuesday afternoon, we started on Monday. Tuesday after lunch, we tried to read through from the beginning, and it was so long that we got to dinner and we had to release the actors because we weren't finished reading through the script. So we all then went to Alex's apartment and just cut the whole thing in half. So then Wednesday morning, it was like, hey, everybody, here's a new script. So it was like starting again fresh. And then we did that presentation. It was great. And then the show transformed again. And then we had, the 2 years of development where we had several labs and workshops leading up to the Washington, D.C. production. So that was sort of the trajectory. And I would just, from the music side of it, we had from the beginning, because that music is like rock based and a lot of ska, we had a band with us the whole time. So it was never, a lot of musicals are built around pianos, and the score just lived with drums and guitar. So that was a part of it from the very beginning, that the rock band texture, especially for Beetlejuice's songs and Lydia's songs, which was it's a huge gift to be able to do that. So, so that's where we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as far as the development of the score and your involvement with it, obviously you did the orchestrations, but based on Eddie's demos, it sounded like he had a good idea of what the show should sound like and what instrumentation should be used. So did you take his demos, and did you just play around with some ideas and then transform it into your own? And did you work very closely with him to sort of match what he was looking for?
Yes, and yes.
Okay.
So Eddie he writes with demos. So anytime he would write a new song, there would be a demo, and Eddie's like supremely talented and plays drums and guitar and piano. And so he would play those instruments. He would sing the songs. Some of the Lydia stuff, he would hire an actress to sing, so they sounded in Lydia's range. And then he would add in other instruments that were MIDI instruments. some strings and some synths and some brass. And so we would take those ideas and then expand them to our full orchestra. So yeah, so that was like, that's the foundation, you know, what he would give us. And then we would just go from there and try to blow it up, you know, and we also, as the show developed, you know, themes would start occurring and textures that we wanted to help with the storytelling and the character that weren't in the initial demos because they were written at a time before those things existed. So things kept building and kept adding, and every step of the way we would add something else and do something different and keep reinventing things. And yeah, and Eddie is, because he's such a skilled musician, he's involved with everything, you know.
That's great. I mean, it's very, I feel like a lot of the times it's very rare to see that, you know, the composer who actually is able to, you know, play various instruments and also present a demo that is, you know, very much orchestrated in and of itself. So it's really cool to have that, and then as you said, to expand on that.
It's such a gift because, you know, a composer generally has something in mind of what they want something to sound like, but sometimes they can't articulate it. So the fact that he is able to say like, oh, this is the big picture. We're already in the ballpark. Do you know what I mean? Like some composers, they will give you something and you're so out of the ballpark because they had an idea, but they weren't able to tell you what it was. So they're able to say no, but you know, so yeah, it's great. It's great.
In addition to the orchestrations, you are also credited with arrangements and musical supervision, and also incidental music. So is that, as far as the incidental music is concerned, is that the underscoring as well as the transitions between scenes? Okay.
So that's everything that exists beyond beyond the songs that Eddie wrote. So it's any connective material, it's any underscoring. You know, Alex Timber's, part of his concept was that the show is very cinematic. So a lot of the music is cued the way movie music is cued, and the transitions are intentionally cinematic and big. And there's also, you know, part of the expectation with Beetlejuice as a property is that the music from the movie and any music that Danny Elfman ever wrote is so iconic. And even though the movie of Beetlejuice is not a musical, there's still like a musical expectation. And so to help kind of fulfill that without using the music from the movie, we created all these transitions and all these other elements that were always like a tip to the hat to that style and that texture, and help deliver, you know, that expectation.
Yeah, and there's that. There's a couple of like themes that are in there. There's the one that's, you know, it's like da 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 da, which is kind of like in its own way a variation of the opening of the movie, which I think is also a variation of something else that's classical that doesn't come to mind right now.
So there is that. So that theme is a theme. The melody, Eddie wrote that melody.
Okay.
And we use that melody throughout the whole show.
Yeah.
And that we also, there are some nods to the Beetlejuice, the movie theme. That theme that is the Beetlejuice theme, we use like, you know, 4 or 5 notes of it every now and then. It shows up like in the opening number and at a couple of spots without using the whole thing. Just a little hint, a little flavor.
That's really cool.
So yeah, but it is important. You know, themes are, movie music is based on themes. So having those things that we can then play with and is important.
Absolutely. So the show, as you mentioned, went through a lot of changes, a lot of cuts, a lot of transitions. And I saw the show in DC a few times before Broadway. And then the transition between DC and Broadway was obviously massive. So what is your favorite cut song from the show? It doesn't actually have to even be from DC. It could be from before that.
Oh, it's I love Eddie wrote a song that was never in the show called "Goodbye Emily Dietz" that we did at our black and white concert.
Yep.
That was a song for Lydia. I don't even know where in the show that song would go. Like it's not in the, I don't know where it fit, but I just absolutely love it. And Dana Steingold sang it. It's just a really simple, sweet, beautiful song. I love that song. I also loved Mama Wood is such a great song. And that was in the show in DC. For a little bit, we ended up cutting it while we were in DC, I think, right?
Yeah, when I saw the show, it was not in it. So I was about halfway through the run is when I went. So it wasn't
it's
there.
Funny because I went to go take a tour of the Capitol when I was in DC when we were like into the run. Because there's like a little secret that if you go to your senator, and say you represent me, they'll give you a tour of the Capitol, like one of their assistants will. So we went. My family was there. We went to take a tour, and the assistant who was showing us around, she had seen the show early in previews, and she said to me, and I said, "What did you like the best?" And she said, "Oh, I love that song that Lydia sang. I think it was called Mama Wood." And she like remembered the hook, and she sang it. And at that point, we had already cut it.
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh." Wow. But it's just such a good song. It also, Sophia sang it so well. It like sat so perfectly in her voice. It's really a good song.
And she did it at the black and white ball as well.
She did, yeah.
And it's also one of the demos that Eddie released. So
yeah,
it's forever immortalized on that recording.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. So obviously DC to Broadway, what a crazy run. What an amazing just energy from the audience and from the recurring fans of the show. And then to get to that point where it's like, oh, well, we're being kicked out of this theater by just so you know. Everyone was devastated, I think, but also hopeful for the future. And then, of course, COVID happened. So, that's a whole thing. But we have the Seoul production, which, of course, is the first international production and first non-Broadway production. So, you're part of this dream team with Matt DiCarlo and Conor Gallagher. So as far as getting into rehearsal and the process for this production, what is it like working with the creative team in Seoul and the cast in Seoul?
I mean, it's quite an amazing experience. It's first of all, everyone here they're like the nicest cast I've ever worked with. Everyone is so excited and kind, and like you walk into the room in the morning and everyone is like double waves and is like so excited. It just makes you feel so good. And we have a music team here. There's a music director named Mi Sol, but a lot of the Koreans have like American names, and her American name that she calls herself is Merry Christmas.
That's amazing.
Merry Christmas is our music director, and she has two assistants who we split the rooms with, who are both so fun and fantastic musicians, and so everyone is in really good hands, and the singers are absolutely Broadway caliber singers. But it's hard. It's tricky, like fitting the language into the music, and especially with comedy, the way comedy works is that joke punchlines land at the end of a thought, so it's hard to make sure that in another language, the reveal of the joke is landing on the right beat of the music. And if we leave, in English, there are spaces where we leave in the orchestrations for a joke to land or to be heard, to like put something in the clear. And we just have to, it's a constant battle of making sure that those are the moments where the meaning of the lyric lines up in addition to the actual timing of the lyric, you know. One advantage to Korean is that they don't rhyme, the music doesn't rhyme. So it's not doubly difficult. It would be even harder if it had to do all those things and rhyme as well. But luckily in Korean, they don't care about rhyming. So that's good. Yeah, it's also just such a weird experience to hear the show and the score sung, this music that I know so well and have lived with for so long, to then hear it in another language is like such a cool, weird experience. It's like you're living in an alternate universe for a moment, you know?
That's really cool. I mean, it must be like blowing your mind to hear it in a different language.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is.
So, so the way that Connor explained it, and this is before, well before you guys went over, is that you each have. Do you have an interpreter as well?
We each have a translator with us.
Okay.
And they're assigned to us like for the whole time we're here, and they are all three of them they're Koreans, but were either born or lived in the States or Canada for a while. Mine was from Vancouver. Connor's is from New Jersey. I think Maddie's is from Chicago, maybe. So they're completely fluent in both languages, and it makes the whole thing really easy.
You kind of touched on the challenges, and you know, obviously with the linguistic and also the cultural differences. So, and you kind of mentioned where in the orchestration there might be some stops that are different, but is there anything else musically that is different for this production?
No, we're using the same orchestration. So in DC, we had a smaller orchestration. We had 12 people. On Broadway, we had 18, and here we're having the same amount. We have 18.
Okay.
So it will sound exactly the same. The ensemble's the same. We make some adjustments for the underscoring, just so that it times out with the dialogue and everything matches up, because some of the dialogue is different lengths. And also the theater that we're in is much bigger. So the distance to move the house is different. So the transitions might be a little bit longer, but those are the only kinds of adjustments. The actual musical material, everything is exactly the same.
And I think you definitely mentioned it, that the show is double cast,
Yes.
because of the amount of performances per week.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons. Every show here is double cast in Korea. I think it's regardless of how many performances there are. They just they want to have as broad of an audience as possible. Wait, Chris, I think we should move now.
Okay.
Because people are starting to come in here. So I'm just gonna put my mask on and I'm gonna move to the outside table.
Sure.
You can get a little tour of the studio as we're moving.
Perfect.
No, you're okay. You're okay. Hi, good morning. I think they're about to learn the skeleton dance in Creepy Old Guy. I think that's what's happening over here.
Very cool.
All right, Chris. Sorry, where were we?
The double cast.
Yeah. So in addition to the number of performances, they also want to expand the fan bases, and the actors here have like very intense fans. So they want to be able to sell as many tickets as possible. So they have, so that's another reason for the double casting. And it's pretty standard. We've seen two shows here. We saw Wicked and we saw Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. And both of those shows are all double cast.
So is that the entire cast, including ensemble, or?
Some do. I know that in Japan, we have some friends who are doing Frozen in Japan right now, and that show is fully double cast, every person, including ensemble. But
Wow.
Here, they're not. Here, it's just principals in Korea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah, that's something that you certainly don't really see over here at all.
Never.
Well, I mean, it's amazing though, because I mean, could you just imagine if a Broadway show were double cast? I mean, that would be, amazing. You could literally see different casts every single day.
I mean, the only thing that comes close is that sometimes if there's a big star like Hello Dolly, right? Bette Midler didn't do 2 shows a week. So they would sell tickets for the other actor. And Phantom of the Opera does that too. Christine's are only ever do 6 shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't. But the other thing is that they don't really rely on understudies here. So we have swings, but the understudy, since there are 2 actors, they don't really have understudies.
Interesting.
So there's that too, you know.
Going back a little bit to Broadway, and now that Broadway is going to be reopening, hopefully in the fall, what are your thoughts on a return to Beetlejuice?
We want a return to Beetlejuice.
All do.
Yeah, we're all hopeful that that it's going to happen, and you know, everything is so up in the air with everyone right now that we're just kind of waiting to see, and our producers are excited about it and want to come back, and I think they're kind of waiting to see how everyone else is doing it and what, you know, how we find our way back in. But there's a lot of support for it, so hopefully we'll be back.
Seriously, fingers crossed, toes crossed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of these shows, I think that 6 is the only one that started selling. I think 6 and Phantom are the only ones that have started selling tickets again.
Yeah.
As of like today. I think Phantom's tickets went on sale today, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because you know, I guess a lot of these shows have to kind of like regroup because some people moved out of state or like across the country, you know, and you know, they kind of have to like get their cast back together to you know, make sure that they're able to get rehearsed again and back in the theater. So
it's true. Everybody dispersed. People went to different places. Some people stayed in New York. But here's the thing. When somebody called me and was like, we need you back in rehearsal for Broadway, everyone will be there tomorrow.
This is true. This is true.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that the positivity around Beetlejuice, the from all sides really, from not only the fan side, the audience side, but also from you know, the company, and also your producers are amazing. I feel like they are just like so supportive of the show, where in many cases, you know, they would just be like, it'll just go on tour. That's fine. You know, I feel like your producers have been since the get-go very, very heavily invested, and not just in a monetarily way of speaking.
Well, but it is really the fan base with Beetlejuice. That kind of positivity and energy influences every part of it. So like, we all loved the show from the beginning, and then feeling that love come back from you guys, from all the fans, it was like feeding upon feeding. You know what I mean? Like, it's constantly exciting. And I think that we all feel attached in a way because of the energy we would get from you guys, that's another reason that I think there's still support for it, and support on our side, that everyone still wants to come back and do it, because everybody made it so so energizing, and it's amazing. Yeah, the fan situation is just, no one has ever had an experience like that from our company. You know what I mean?
It was, yeah, I mean, and from a professional theater goer side, which is what I consider myself, I've never really experienced anything like this before.
No.
And it's just, it was chaos in the best way.
I mean, you know, we have a lot of people in our show who are like Broadway stalwarts. Like, you know, how many shows has Carrie Butler been in? Just a Broadway star. And Rob McClure and Alex, all of them, and every single person, no matter if it was their first Broadway show or their 15th Broadway show, the response was like dumbfounded at how the fans responded, and just loving everything about the experience. And
that is why the show will live on in every way possible. You can't kill Beetlejuice.
That's true.
So and this is just thinking about the future in a different way. But so they've announced that there is going to be a Brazilian production next year as well, which I guess is non-replicated.
Yes.
Is it in any way going to be similar in the sense that they're going to do the translation similarly, like working with the creators, or is it going to be completely independently done?
I don't actually know that much about the Brazil production yet. We haven't been involved with that, so um, I don't even know how far along. I know they made an announcement about it, but I don't know how far along the negotiation is. So I'm not the person to ask.
Okay.
But
And
Bill sounds great.
it's going to be crazy to hear it in yet another language. So
I know. True,
yeah.
true.
And and this off the top of my head, this might be way too early to ask this question, but are there any plans to do a cast recording of the Seoul production?
I had asked that question in one of our first meetings here, and they said that they do often make Korean cast albums, but I don't know when they make that decision. As of right now, there isn't a plan, but hopefully that would be amazing if they did. Because the singers are amazing here. It's really good. So hopefully.
Yeah, I am waiting, and I'm so excited to just like hear clips of what is going on over there. And it would be really cool if they had like a double cast album, obviously, because you'd have to two casts.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they do. If they do two, that's a really good question. I'm gonna find out and I'll let you know. Yeah, I'm just excited to get in the room with the orchestra again, because I miss on my New York orchestra, and I'm excited to have this to start with the Korean orchestra. That's still about 4 weeks away, so we have some time still.